They told me the assignment would be simple. A routine reconnaissance of a backwater world, a planet of bipeds who stuffed themselves with fat and sugar, who filled their airwaves with crude jokes and brightly colored distractions, who worshipped glowing screens more than survival. Humanity, they called themselves. A species so laughably chaotic that our academies use their transmissions as case studies in cultural collapse. I volunteered immediately. After all, what better opportunity for amusement than to watch primitives flail in their own filth? The order was to collect a specimen from one of their lush equatorial forests. Our scholars insisted these jungle fighters were held in some esteem by human militaries of the past, though I could not imagine why. The word jungle itself reeked of mud, insects, and discomfort, surely not an environment conducive to tactical genius. More likely, it was another example of human dramatization, the same way they glorified their consumption of burritos in glowing advertisements. I assembled my team with the confidence of one certain he will be entertained. Specialists in containment, neural scans, and biologging joined me, their carapaces polished, their manners precise. We entered Earth's atmosphere cloaked, sliding over an ocean that reeked of salt and hydrocarbons, before descending into a canopy so thick it blotted out the stars. I remember remarking, with a flourish of sarcasm, that the humans must enjoy losing themselves in such oppressive greenery. No wonder they invented GPS. We found him by a riverbank, a solitary figure in his middle years, sitting on a rock, fishing line cast into water. No loud devices, no glowing screens, no plastic packaging. Just stillness. His face was weathered, marked by years of exposure to elements. Yet his eyes were startlingly alert even as they seemed half-closed in rest. My containment officer scoffed. "This is their jungle warrior? A camper?" The others chittered with amusement. I allowed myself a smile. The extraction was efficient. A pulse of paralysis, a beam of lift, and the human rose silently into our hold. He did not thrash or scream. He simply hung there, limp, mouth relaxed. I admit, part of me felt disappointed. I had expected some flurry of futile resistance, perhaps a display of primitive bravado. Instead, he was as unremarkable as a bag of their supermarket produce. Back aboard the vessel, I made my preliminary notes. The subject was male, approximately 35 rotations, musculature consistent with moderate athletic training, but unremarkable. Clothing, durable fabric stained with soil. Possessions, fishing rod, rucksack, a small folding blade. Hardly the armament of a so-called warrior. I mused aloud that humans appear to invest more in cooking their prey than in hunting it. The crew laughed, and the sound filled the chamber like a chorus of superiority. We secured him in the examination bay, restraints calibrated to withstand thrice his potential output. His vitals ticked steadily across the monitors. Brain activity was curious, stronger fluctuations than baseline human patterns, though I dismissed it as noise from our instruments adapting to primitive biology. My biologger asked if we should proceed immediately to neural mapping. I told him yes. After all, I was eager to document the dull mechanisms behind human thought, surely a collection of impulses dedicated to snack acquisition and entertainment rituals. Yet something about his stillness bothered me. Even unconscious, there was no slackness, no vulnerability. His breathing was measured, deliberate, like the rhythm of a soldier sleeping on command. I reminded myself not to overinterpret. Primitive organisms often displayed reflexes that mimic discipline. This was no different. During our transit back into orbit, I dictated my first report. I mocked their obsession with emojis, tiny icons they used instead of words. I ridiculed their fixation on domestic felines, creatures they seemed to consider both gods and fools. I even referenced one of their cultural myths, a being called Florida Man, whose antics filled endless transmissions. "We assumed he was an anomaly," I said with dry laughter, "but perhaps he is the norm." My crew chuckled obediently. Still, I could not ignore the faint prickling unease when I looked at the human. His eyelids twitched, as though in dream. Or was it calculation? His fingers flexed, testing the restraints not like a panic captive but like a craftsman evaluating tools. I told myself I imagined it. I reminded myself that these were jungle fighters, men who crawled through mud and used hand signals instead of words. What could such training mean against the brilliance of a galactic mind? And yet, I caught myself staring longer than necessary. When we reached orbit, the paralysis field was supposed to keep him unconscious for another full cycle. I planned to observe his natural reactions upon waking later, to amuse myself with his awe at the sight of alien walls and instruments. Instead, as we prepared the neural scanner, his lips curved upward in a faint smile. My containment officer noticed and snorted. Involuntary muscle spasm. Nothing more. I agreed, though my throat felt dry. The scanner powered on, bathing his skull in radiant beams. Neural data flooded the monitors, dense, tangled, strangely adaptive. My biologger frowned. This seems unusually structured. I dismissed the concern. Primitive minds often appeared chaotic until filtered properly. Still, I caught my reflection in the glass, mandibles pressed tight, eyes narrower than I liked. Then, as if sensing my doubt, his chest rose in a deliberate, deep breath. His eyes fluttered, then opened. Not wide, not frantic, simply open. Blue irises, steady, unafraid. He looked directly at me through the barrier. I froze, words lodged in my throat. For a moment, neither of us moved. The ship hummed softly, crew frozen at their stations. And then, he smiled again, not faint this time, but broad, calm, almost amused. I realized, with a chill that spread from carapace to core, that he had not woken early by accident. He had chosen this moment. And though I forced my voice steady as I barked for restraints to be checked, my mind whispered treason against itself. The central conflict of this mission had just begun, and it was not the one I had been promised. The restraints were supposed to hold him as securely as the iron grip of orbit itself. I had verified the field integrity 3 times, more out of habit than necessity, for our technology was flawless. Or so I believed. He lay there, still in that infuriatingly calm manner, and I reminded myself that humans were a species of theater. They grimaced, postured, and pretended strength when in truth they were fragile. I spoke this aloud for the benefit of my record, savoring the sound of my own certainty. But when his eyes opened mid-sentence, the words curdled in my throat. I should not open under paralysis. Pupils should not adjust to the dim light as if they had been waiting. And lips should not part in that slow, deliberate way to form a smile. "Good evening," the human said, as if greeting old friends. His voice was not weak, not slurred, but steady and measured. My squad flinched, their armor clinking faintly. I attempted to recover my composure, assuring them this was no more than residual neural misfiring. Yet even as I spoke, the human's gaze moved across us one by one, pausing with uncanny precision. "You," he said, nodding slightly toward my medic, "handle injuries." His eyes shifted. "You maintain systems." Then to me, "And you're in charge." The room seemed colder. He was not guessing. He was identifying. My medic's throat plates vibrated in agitation. "What does it know our roles?" he whispered. I silenced him sharply. It was coincidence, I insisted, a lucky guess. Humans were notorious for superstition and pattern recognition. They saw faces in clouds and omens in coffee grounds. But the human smile widened as if mocking my explanation. "I could smell the disinfectant on you," he told the medic. "The one with cleaner hands has to be the engineer. And you," his eyes locked on me, "you don't do any of the work. You give orders. I met your type before." The precision of his tone gnawed at me. He was not frightened, not confused. He was dissecting us as though he were the scientist and we the specimens. I ordered the restraints reinforced and attempted to begin formal questioning. I asked his name, his origin, his purpose in the jungle. He answered none of them directly. Instead, he asked questions of his own, about our propulsion, our weapon systems, our mission profile. His phrasing was casual, even playful, but his eyes measured every twitch of our expressions. One of my soldiers muttered, "Why does he not beg?" And I too found myself wondering. Fear was the expected response. Pleading, confusion, anger. Instead, he treated this as conversation over a campfire. You know, he said lightly, I was awake during the ride-up. I could feel the frequency in your stabilizers through the hull. You want to tune that down? It gets uncomfortable. It was a lie, I told myself. He could not possibly have remained conscious through our sedation field. Yet he described the journey in unsettling detail. The rhythm of the atmospheric ascent, the metallic groan when we breached orbit. My second officer shifted uneasily, his confidence eroding. I maintained my mask of arrogance. You imagine much, human. Delirium of your primitive brain. He tilted his head, studying me with that unnerving calm. Maybe, or maybe you underestimate what a few decades of listening can do. You'd be surprised what the jungle teaches when you're quiet long enough. His composure irritated me. I leaned close, intent on reminding him of his powerlessness. You are aboard a vessel beyond your comprehension. You are paralyzed, bound, and entirely at our mercy. What possible advantage do you imagine you possess? He met my gaze without blinking. The advantage of already knowing how this ends. Something in the way he spoke froze the chamber. He was not boasting, not threatening, merely stating a fact. My squad exchanged nervous glances. I forced a laugh, sharp and brittle. Prophecy, is it? Primitive superstition. Perhaps you've inhaled too many jungle spores. He chuckled softly, as though humoring a child. You think I haven't seen your cameras? You've got 3 in this room, 1 hidden behind that panel on the left. Angled wrong, though. It's giving you blind spots. I spun to the indicated panel. Indeed, a microlens protruded there, faint enough to escape notice by most eyes. My engineer stiffened. The blind spot he mentioned was real. Impossible, I thought. How could he know? My arrogance began to crack, though I patched it quickly with sarcasm. Yes, remarkable. Your eyesight pierces metal walls now. He shrugged. Not sight. You hear the difference. Machines hum. Air changes. Shadows bend. You'd be amazed what your own ship tells you when you stop talking long enough to listen. The explanation was absurd, yet unnervingly plausible. My squad began to whisper among themselves. I snapped at them, forbidding further chatter. Discipline must not erode. The human smile softened into something colder. You brought the wrong man. Should have taken one of the reality TV fans. Or someone busy with a microwave burrito. Me? I was camping. You picked bad. The words meant little to me, yet his tone carried weight. A memory flickered from my cultural briefings, obscure references to their peculiar entertainments. I scoffed aloud. We thought Florida Man was an anomaly. Apparently, he is not. He laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not madness, but quiet amusement. Florida Man's just training wheels. The sound unsettled us more than silence would have. My medic shifted closer to the door. My engineer muttered about faulty sedation levels. I considered both explanations, though neither erased the unease prickling my sensory nodes. Then the human leaned back against the restraints, utterly relaxed, as if reclined his own chair. Tell me, he asked, how long until we reach your station? I lied automatically, insisting we were already there. He shook his head, eyes closed as though listening to something within the walls. No, not yet. I can still feel the hum. We're mid-transit. I'll know when you break. His certainty was intolerable. I ended the session abruptly, ordering the subject sedated once more. My squad obeyed, though their movements were hasty, almost frantic. I left the chamber with my pride intact in appearance, but eroded within. As the door sealed behind me, I told myself again that he was only human, a primitive, backward jungle dweller. But the lie tasted bitter, for in the dim light of that chamber, when he smiled and spoke with such certainty, I could not shake the sense that we were not the hunters. We were the prey, and the hunt had only just begun. The scanners hummed, their beams sliding across the human skull, translating organic sparks into streams of data. I anticipated primitive patterns, random firings, crude impulses, the muddled chaos of an ape brain. Instead, the projections bloomed across my console like intricate battle maps, layers upon layers of interwoven strategies, contingencies, and associations. His neurons did not meander like lost insects. They marched like armies. My engineer whispered that the readings must be faulty, perhaps contaminated by the damp residue of Earth's atmosphere. I silenced him with more force than necessary, though I too longed to believe it. The human lay relaxed, as though the restraints were a hammock rather than bonds. His eyes flicked toward the monitor as if he already knew what it displayed. "You like what you see?" he asked lightly. "I've been told I overthink." His tone was playful, but there was iron beneath. I tried to mock him. "Your brain is an unsorted mess of primitive instincts." He grinned. "Messy? Sure, but it gets the job done." Then, after a pause, "Careful, I bite." While my squad flinched, the phrase was absurd, yet delivered with such deliberate confidence that it lodged in the mind like a barb. I logged the comment for cultural analysis, noting that humans used humor even when powerless. It was their camouflage, their teeth hidden behind jokes. He began quoting strange lines. "I'll be back," he muttered once, eyes half closed. Another time, "In space, no one can hear you scream." My medic looked unsettled. "What is he saying?" he demanded. I offered a clipped reply. "Nonsense." Yet the cadence of the human's voice was purposeful, each phrase meant to unbalance us. He was performing a play to which only he knew the script. Then he laughed, a quiet, knowing chuckle. "We thought Florida man was an anomaly," I said bitterly, half to myself. He answered, "He's just one of many. You'd be surprised how deep our bench goes." The scanner chimed as if agreeing with him, revealing bursts of activity far beyond baseline human metrics. We expected irregularity. We found structure. He was not merely awake. He was analyzing us. I asked sharply what his profession had been before we captured him. He smiled again. "Security testing. Counterintelligence. Before that, special operations." The phrase rang in my translator like a warning bell. Special operations. Elite jungle fighters. The very myth we had set out to debunk. I attempted sarcasm. "You mean you once played soldier in your primitive wars?" He tilted his head. "Played? That's one way to put it. You'd call it asymmetric conflict. Small teams. Deep penetration. Minimal footprint. Maximum damage." I sensed my squad stiffening. The words were too precise, too calm. He spoke as though lecturing students, not boasting. The scanner lines climbed higher, his brain seething with activity while his body remained still. He asked suddenly, "Do you know where your cameras are?" My engineer muttered that of course he did not. But the human raised his chin toward the ceiling. "Two there. One behind the left panel. Your blind spot's the far corner. Bet you didn't notice until I said it." We froze. I had noticed that blind spot hours before, intending to file a maintenance report. How could he know? My throat tightened, but I forced laughter. Coincidence. Humans are obsessed with seeing patterns. You imagine faces in clouds. He gave me a pitying look, as though I were the primitive one. Patterns are just puzzles waiting to be solved. You keep giving me clues. When the scanner concluded, the data was so anomalous that my medic whispered, "It's not possible. His synaptic density, he's operating beyond our models." I silenced him with a glare, but the words hung heavy. The human sighed theatrically. "You're all working too hard. I've already sent a message." The chamber snapped into silence. My second officer barked, "Impossible. Communications are sealed." But even as he spoke, the lights flickered, systems humming irregularly. My crew exchanged panicked glances. I tried to smother their fear with authority. Lies. Psychological games. Yet inside, I too felt the creeping dread. He leaned forward against his restraints, eyes glinting. "I only needed your beam. The scanner's network runs both ways. While you were peering in, I peered out. Funny thing about technology, it rarely understands how humans improvise." I demanded specifics, desperate to reassert control. He only smiled. "Let's just say, Earth's not blind. You've been under watch longer than you realize." The statement lodged in my core like ice. The notion that Earth, backward Earth, might possess defenses hidden from galactic intelligence was unthinkable. Yet here he was, speaking with the calm certainty of a man describing the weather. Then he delivered the line that unraveled my arrogance completely. "You've mistaken quiet for weakness. It isn't. It's patience. I felt my composure crack. My words stumbled. I mocked him again, though the sarcasm rang hollow. Patience of apes roasting burritos in glowing boxes? He smirked. Exactly. You thought that was the whole story. You never looked deeper. We learned to hide in plain sight. The chamber seemed smaller then, the walls pressing inward. I saw my squad restless, their discipline fraying. One whispered, "This is not a normal specimen." Another hissed, "He knew our roles, our systems. He's not guessing." The human leaned back, voice soft. "You should have left me at the river." My chest constricted. For the first time since landing on Earth, I wondered if we had not captured him at all. If he had let us. He opened his eyes once more and winked. "By the way," he said casually, "Chuck Norris sends his regards." The name meant nothing, yet the way he said it filled the room with dread. My translator offered no clear definition, only vague references buried in cultural archives. A human warrior, exaggerated, impossible feats, folklore turned into living myth. We stared, unsettled by the confidence behind the nonsense. My engineer whispered, "If such a man exists." I cut him off with a shout, though my own voice shook. The human's laughter was soft, controlled, almost kind. It was the laughter of someone who had already won. And for the first time, I could not bring myself to call him primitive. The alarms wailed across the command deck, their shrill tones cutting through my composure like serrated blades. The human had not shouted, had not fought, had not begged. He had simply sat, eyes forward, as our vessel bent itself in a disarray around him. I watched systems flicker out like dying stars on my monitors, watched our crew sprint in nervous, jerking motions they would later deny were fear. And at the center of it all, the human sat cross-legged on the examination table as though he were meditating in some forest clearing, calm, maddeningly calm. I demanded diagnostics. The reports contradicted themselves. Engines functional yet offline, doors sealed yet ajar, containment intact yet breached. It was not sabotage in the way we defined it. It was suggestion. Something in our systems now answered not to us, but to him. He raised his head, glanced at a nearby camera lens, and smirked. The gesture felt surgical, deliberate. "You built your controls too centralized," he murmured, voice barely audible, yet reaching every sensor with terrifying clarity. That's the thing with networks. You pull one string, and the whole puppet dances. My scales prickled. We had dissected his brain structure only hours earlier. Primitive folds, inefficient electrical patterns, so we thought. Now those same primitive folds were commanding technology designed over millennia of conquest. I attempted to assert dominance, ordering containment drones into the chamber. He did not move, only tilted his head and muttered, "Ever heard of duct tape? Stronger than it looks." Then, with a flick of his wrist, where nothing should have been concealed, two drones collided, sparks raining, their limbs entangled as though bound by invisible adhesive. The crew gasped. I snapped at them to maintain order, but my words cracked under their own weight. How did he do it? How did he improvise control out of nothing? His eyes gleamed with something beyond defiance. It was playfulness, the same energy humans wasted on their so-called reality television, only weaponized. I pressed closer to the observation window, claws tapping the glass. "You will cease this at once," I said, though my voice wavered. "You cannot comprehend the scale of power you face." He gave a short laugh. "Power's not the problem. Predictability is." Then he quoted some absurd Earth phrase. "This is the way," and though I did not know its origin, the certainty in his tone lodged like a thorn in my chest. Minutes stretched into eternities. Our corridors sealed themselves without command. Security feeds looped irrelevant footage. Atmospheric regulators cycled in erratic patterns. It was as though the ship itself had joined his side, and he never rose from that table, never showed strain. His only effort seemed to be restraining himself from laughing outright. We attempted countermeasures, manual overrides, system wipes, even physical disconnection of critical nodes. Each time, the result was the same: failure before execution. It was as if he anticipated every keystroke, every plan, and preempted us with casual precision. I began to understand. This was no accident. He had used our own brain-scanning apparatus to map our ship's architecture. In examining him, we had opened ourselves like a book, and he had read every word. I tried denial. This is coincidence, a malfunction, random entropy. But the crew's eyes betrayed me, wide, terrified, darting toward him like prey acknowledging predator. They whispered his earlier claim. He had already sent a message. What if Earth knew? What if all of humanity knew? Finally, I addressed him directly, voice low, stripped of arrogance. What are you? He looked straight at me, and the humor dropped away. For the first time, I saw not jest but cold calculation. I was MACV-SOG. You probably don't know what that means. We were the guys who went where even our own side didn't admit we existed. We made jungles eat armies. And you, he gestured lazily at the failing consoles. You just handed me your jungle. The name rang like thunder in my mind, meaningless yet terrifying. He spoke not as a boast, but as a fact. My claws clenched the railing. The chamber felt suddenly too small, the air too thin. I searched my databanks for that acronym, that unit, but our databases were barren. If humanity had concealed such soldiers from themselves, what else had they hidden from us? The ship groaned, lights dimming to a twilight hue. Emergency klaxons blared before, silencing mid-wail. My crew clung to their stations, desperate for command. I opened my mouth to order retreat, but there was nowhere to retreat to. We were already prisoners aboard our own vessel. Then he leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Here's the part you should really worry about. You think Earth is primitive, but we'll let you think that. You've never wondered why we broadcast sitcoms into space, why we obsess over cat videos, why our headlines read like satire. That's camouflage, disguise. While you laughed at us, we studied you. The weight of those words pressed heavier than any gravity. He was not just one man, he was a herald. The implication uncoiled in my mind like a serpent. Earth's apparent foolishness was intentional misdirection, a strategic mask. Every burrito, every meme, every Florida Man headline, we had consumed them as evidence of weakness, never realizing they were bait. I staggered back, tail striking the deck. My voice came ragged. What do you intend to do? He smiled again, but softer now, almost pitying. Me? Nothing. I'm just a warning shot. The ship powered down completely then, every system dark. Only his silhouette remained visible in the glow of backup lights. My crew trembled, some on the verge of breaking into primal shrieks. I could not speak. My arrogance, my faith in our superiority lay shattered at my feet. In the silence that followed, I found only one thought circling endlessly. We had laughed at the jungle fighters of Earth, and in return, they had sent a shadow from that jungle to remind us what laughter costs. When the emergency systems rebooted minutes later, the chamber was empty. He was gone. No breach detected, no explanation logged. Simply absence, as though he had never been there. Only the faint echo of his voice lingered in my mind. We made jungles eat armies. I stand now, recording this testimony, stripped of pride. Humanity is not what we thought. They are not prey, not fools, not primitives. They are hunters who hide behind humor and chaos, masking brilliance in absurdity. And we, mighty galactic armies, mocked them until it was too late. I end this record with one truth carved deep into my being. Fear them. Fear the quiet ones, the laughing ones, the ones who speak of duct tape and chuckle about names we do not understand. Fear them, because when they finally stop laughing, the galaxy itself will tremble,